We're in Austin, the live music capital of the world, for another smash hit TSO sprint, which brings Super Saturday to a thrilling climax here at the Red Bull Grand Prix of the Americas. Qualifying was an absolute corker here in COTA, and now we go racing at the rodeo over 10 tense laps. It's time for MotoGP. .51 kilometres in length, 3.42 miles, first built back in 2012, joining the MotoGP calendar in 2013. That's the Circuit of the Americas in all of its glory. As you mentioned, 3.5 miles, 20 corners. One of the longest tracks on the Grand Prix calendar, 11 left, 9 of them right. And the rider's set to tackle it over a 10-lap TSO sprint coming up very, very shortly. Sector 1 weaves its way through from turn 1 through to turn 7. Brilliant turn 10, fourth gear, drops down the hill in sector 3. And the lap completed from 16 to 20. Most demanding braking points, well, that's up the hill into the first corner. We saw Fabio Quartararo and Marco Bezzecchi crash there earlier on today. And the high stress zone, 16, 17, 18. Jorge Martin, a big crash in qualifying for him at turn 18. Overtaking hot spots, well, there are plenty of them here. The first and last corner, turn 11. This was Luca Marini on Fabio Quartararo into turn 12 last year. Marini on course for his first MotoGP podium. Well, this was 3 weeks ago, last time out at the Grand Prix of Portugal, and already a humongous talking point in the World Championship. The controversial collision between the two heavyweights, Marquez and Bagnaia, the world champion. Late heartache for Maverick Vinales, missing out on a safe second place on the very last lap of the Grand Prix after a gearbox problem. But it was this man, the Martinator, Jorge Martin, who prevailed at the Portuguese Grand Prix. And that means the Spaniard comes to the Red Bull Grand Prix of the Americas for round 3 with an 18-point World Championship lead as we head into what promises to be an enthralling, a captivating 10-lap TSO sprint coming your way this afternoon. About 20 minutes away from lights out as the world's fastest riders get unleashed in America's fastest growing city. This is one you are not going to want to miss. If you joined us this morning, and we sincerely hope you did so, well, you would have witnessed 2 unbelievable qualifying sessions. It all started in Q1 with South African Brad Binder, second in the World Championship, crashing at turn number 11. He did not go through into Q2. Binder, second in the standings as it stands right now, starts from 17th place on the grid, and so much to talk about on our first 2 rows. Maverick Vinales, a second inside Pecco Bagnaia's 2023 pole time here in COTA. In red hot form, isn't he, Vinales, and the red hot favourite going into this afternoon's sprint. The first ever sub 2-minute 1-second lap of this COTA circuit was fired in by Vinales to take his second pole in the last 4 Grand Prix. But check this out as well, as we look towards downtown Austin, the live music capital of the world. Well, making some noise in MotoGP right now, without any question, is Pedro Acosta. Third MotoGP start. He's on the front row of the grid. A sensational second place for the reigning Moto2 world champion. The Moto2 race winner here 1 year ago. And the king of COTA creeping back towards the throne. Will he be wearing the crown once again here tomorrow for the 8th time? For the first time in his Ducati career, Marc Marquez launches from the front row in 3rd place. And what a mouth-watering prospect we have on row 2. Bagnaia, Bastianini and Martin, a trio of Ducati GP24s, will launch from row 2. Matt Burton and Lewis Sotheby in the commentary box. We're super excited already as we start the build-up to this TSO sprint. Jack Appleyard is down in pit lane. Lewis, this feels like we are 20 minutes away from something very, very special indeed. 2 unbelievable qualifying sessions this morning. Vinales, superb on pole, but Acosta and Marc Marquez on the front row. This should be a sizzler.
Boy, I'm looking forward to this one. 10 laps of this T-Toe sprint coming up, and 6 heavyweights on the front 2 rows of the grid. What a front row we have. Maverick Vinales producing the lap of the weekend. We thought we'd seen the lap of the season so far yesterday from Jorge Martin in practice. Maverick Vinales took pole position by 0.3 of a second in a breathless qualifying session where Jorge Martin himself crashed twice in 2 laps. That leaves him on the second row with reigning world champion Pecco Bagnaia and his teammate Enea Bastianini, who was the pole sitter last time out in Portimao. And in amongst all of the sharks is the biggest shark of them all, it feels at the moment, Pedro Acosta, his 3rd MotoGP weekend. He's 2nd on the grid and eyeing sprint victory.
Round 2 in Portimao. First MotoGP podium finish, the first ever for Gas, 3rd youngest rider in history to do so in the Premier class. Box ticked. Round 3, first front row, and arguably MotoGP's toughest venue for both the brain and the body. Front row, box ticked. Pedro Acosta lighting up COTA, just as he has done the first 2 rounds in Qatar and in Portimao. Plenty to ponder ahead of this Tissot sprint for the Sprint King. Can Jorge Martin increase his 18-point lead in the World Championship as he goes for an 11th consecutive sprint podium? An incredible record on Saturdays for Martin. Confidence dented though somewhat, Lewis, after a really eventful Q2 for Martin for the 2nd year in a row. Crashed twice in Q2 here in COTA last year. He was on the floor at turn 11, then a real high-speed get-off, 3rd gear, 170 kilometers an hour through the high-speed turn 18. 6 on the grid, but that will have certainly taken a little bit out of his confidence coming into this sprint.
Has to have done. I mean, he was so quick yesterday. As mentioned, he set the new all-time lap record yesterday in practice in the low 201s, a 201.2. Vinales, though, did a 2 minutes .864 this morning, and Martin must have known the level of the competition he was up against this afternoon. There were at least 5 riders, in the end it was 6, who were fighting out for pole position, who all had a genuine shot at it, and Martin had to leave everything out there. The first crash came into turn 11, the 1st gear hairpin at the beginning of the back straight, and rather than just taking it easy and coming back into the pit, Martin decided to push on for a 2nd lap. Again, was on an absolute flyer 2nd time around before he lost the rear in pretty scary fashion coming through turn 18. That one surely must have dealt to the confidence, because he was immediately looking back down the racetrack. A scary moment for the World Championship leader.
Somehow still went back out on circuit and found a 201.5 Y1, which just got him on the back of that 2nd row. Although he was really fortunate actually that rear tyre didn't grip, because that could have fired him over the handlebars and been a vicious monster high side. The 2 factory Ducatis start side by side next to each other. 4th place goes the double MotoGP world champion this weekend. His own words, it's all been about revenge and redemption at the Horsepower Rodeo, trying to banish the demons of last year. Your minds back to this very Grand Prix when he was nearly 2.5 seconds clear of Alex Rins, coasting towards back-to-back double victories at the start of 2023 when he fell off at turn 2. 4th on the grid goes Bagnaia, qualified 4th in 3 of the last 4 Grand Prix. Super happy with his race pace yesterday. Do not discount the world champion.
No, he's still yet to start on the front row of the grid though, isn't he, this season, which is something of a surprise. And Bagnaia said he had one of his better Fridays for quite a long time actually yesterday, so he's clearly carrying confidence into the business end of the weekend. Qualifying, as you say, hasn't necessarily been his speciality in recent times, but Sundays generally are for Pecco Bagnaia, notwithstanding what happened in Portimao last time out. Given the fighting talk, you have to say, that was coming from Pecco Bagnaia yesterday, expect him to certainly be stronger in the sprint and in the race than he was in qualifying.
Shows how good he was here in COTA last year before the crash, right here down the hill. Rapid get off there through turn 2. We saw Lace Espargo go down there in that 2nd qualifying session. Pecco Bagnaia ran away with the sprint here 1 year ago. Over the 10 laps, his winning margin of 2.545 seconds over Alex Rins is still the biggest winning margin in the Tissot sprint era. Just shows his authority at this stage of the weekend. Last year he won that sprint from pole position.
Take a look at the Michelin tyre allocation. We're expecting everyone to go for the soft rear tyre because it's generally not a rear tyre limited circuit here. Many will go for that option in the race tomorrow as well. Many prefer a bit of a harder, more stable front tyre here because there are so many big braking zones around this COTA circuit into turn number 1, turn 11, turn 12 as well. big stops from top speed down to first gear hairpins. That's one of them that we're just about to run on board with through Marc Marquez, the king of COTA, who's done an awful lot around this circuit. He's done an awful lot in his MotoGP career, but he's never won a Tissot Sprint. You feel this is his best opportunity yet.
Yeah, all eyes on that front row. Maverick Vinales just completely in tune, isn't he, with that factory Aprilia right now. I said he's never felt better on top of that RSGP machine. He's pretty much able to do whatever he wants with that motorcycle. Pinpoint accuracy on the brakes, and with the new aero creating that extra downforce, Maverick Vinales has always been extra strong in fast corners. He's really capitalising on that here this weekend. He does not really seem to have an obvious weak point around this 5.51 kilometre circuit of the Americas, trying to be just the second rider in the sprint era to win back-to-back sprints. That honour only previously has gone the way of Martin. You've got to go a long way down the grid to find the Japanese brands once again. Their charge led by double COTA winner Alex Rins on the factory Yamaha. He will go from the back of row 5 in 15th place, out qualifying his teammate Fabio Quartararo for the first time. And a woeful weekend so far for HRC as they see their 4 bikes occupy the last 4 places on the grid, with only Johan Zarco managing to qualify inside of a second of Vinales' blistering speed. Another humbling day so far for HRC.
What could be a factor in this Tissot Sprint coming up in around about 12 minutes time is the wind. It really feels like the wind has picked up here in Austin. You saw it a moment ago as they emerged onto the start-finish straight, and the American flag in the background just at the top of the hill here into turn 1 was really flying proudly. It was a strong headwind in Moto3 and Moto2 qualifying earlier on when Jack Appleyard spoke to us from pit lane, which is therefore a crosswind into that final corner. So that could be significant as we go into this upcoming Tissot Sprint over 10 laps.
Yeah, there's been some rather inclement, unpredictable weather around this part of America since we first arrived here early this week. There was a tornado warning, I believe, on Tuesday, and I spoke to some colleagues of ours who were caught up in some rather bumpy flights on arrival in Austin. Sounded super scary, rather them than me. Then as Bagnaia comes to the head of the second row, 2:01.352 was his best work in Q2 this morning. 22 months since Bagnaia came to a Grand Prix outside the top 3 in the ranking, just shows how good he has been over the last couple of years. The 27-year-old Italian, no sprint win in 11 since the Red Bull Ring in Austria. He hasn't been on a sprint podium in the last 4, so fair to say he's long overdue a big result on Super Saturday.
What's going through the mind here then of Pedro Acosta, who always seems to keep himself calm while everything's going on around him? He's answered every question that's been put his way so far in MotoGP. We're only at the 3rd Grand Prix weekend. For the first time then, and it certainly will not be the last, he sits on the front row of a MotoGP grid, and it's a measure of Pedro Acosta's performance so far that I don't think either of us would be in the least bit surprised if he wins this Tissot Sprint.
Not at all. What a superstar we have on our hands now in MotoGP in the form of the 19-year-old Spaniard. Alongside him though on the grid, the only man ahead of him on the grid, of course, he's been absolutely superb all weekend so far, has Maverick Vinales. Fastest yesterday morning, a record-breaking pole time. He's on pole here in COTA. Let's hear the thoughts of Aprilia race boss Paolo Bonora, who joins Jack.
Paolo, big race ahead for Maverick. He's proven what he can do over 1 lap, 10 ahead of him now. Just how important are those first 2 going to be?
Yeah, you are right. There is an unbelievable result of Maverick. We are so happy about this. He did a great job because he beat the lap time record, so it was not so easy. But he feeling comfort immediately with the bike since yesterday. We touched not so much in the bike, so it seems that he feel immediately good with the setting. At the moment, the temperature is higher than this morning, and the key will be to bring the tire at the end of the race.
All the best.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks Jack, thanks to Paolo Bonora. Then pretty easy to decipher what's going to happen in terms of the tyre choice, regardless of how windy or hot it is here in COTA. Every rider, all 22 riders, will start this sprint medium front, soft rear tyre, so no deviations. We didn't expect them to be honest, as well. The Beast, he knows what it's like to taste some post-race Prosecco here in COTA. He did it in magnificent style 2 years ago, 5th to the victory here in COTA. a victory that did really open the eyes of the factory Ducati management. It was a massive win to help him seal a seat alongside Pecco Bagnaia in the factory team, and he's had good race pace this weekend, perhaps missing a little bit in time attack, but he did find a mid 201 to get himself in that 5th position on the grid, and he's another big name contender for the victory in this sprint.
Feels like he's the rider on the front 2 rows that we've perhaps spoken the least about this weekend. He's flown under the radar so far, in Bastianini starting from 5th on the grid. Right next to him is the World Championship leader Jorge Martin. Where is his head at after a pretty stressful qualifying session this morning? His team boss Gino Borsoi joins Jack.
Gino, qualifying obviously didn't go to plan for Jorge. 2 crashes, the last one a big one. How is he feeling coming into it?
Feeling it's okay. Fortunately, he didn't get any injuries, so this is the most important. But anyway, he's quite happy about the bike. So let's see the race. Let's see the first corner. Today is not the important day, so we have to try to finish to get the maximum result and think about tomorrow.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Gino Borsoi. That's what you call a proper bird's eye view of this wonderful circuit of the Americas on the outskirts of vibrant Austin. 252 feet in the air you are there, not for the faint-hearted, because that's a clear glass floor. So if you're a sufferer of vertigo, you're going to be brave to tackle the 25 floors and 419 steps that it takes you to get to the top. Who'll be on the top step of the podium at the end of this sprint? Aleix Espargaro, not discounting himself, but I won't say he's overly optimistic. Coates is certainly not one of his favourite circuits. He actually did an exceptional job to get himself as high as 7th after a really high-speed crash in that 2nd qualifying session. He was down Bagnaia style, wasn't he? That's a fast crash. 3rd gear, 175 kilometres an hour down the hill into turn 2. Aleix was fairly fortunate to walk away relatively unscathed from that one.
He had a front row seat yesterday for Jorge Martin's then all-time lap record, and he's got a front row seat arguably for the spice up ahead of him in the front 2 rows of the grid. So Aleix Espargaro will be certainly keep you a close eye on what goes on ahead of him, with 6 heavyweights among the GP all going for the same apex and maybe trying to pick up any pieces on the way out of that. As we momentarily saw the American livery of Trackhouse, of course, for their home Grand Prix. Jack Miller also getting into the American spirit. There were 3 KTMs to going through qualifying 1 earlier on today. Jack Miller was the sole to get through. That put him 11th on the grid.
There are a whole bunch of American legends gathered here for this Rebel Grand Prix of the Americas. Kevin Schwantz is here, Wayne Rainey. I bumped into John Kaczynski a few moments ago. Kenny Roberts Jr. and the trailblazer for all of them, Kenny Roberts Sr. 3 times 500cc world champion, an absolute legend. I'm delighted to say Kenny Sr. joins Jack.
Kenny, great here on the grid, and what store as well. The grid is set up. What do you think we're going to see?
I'm trying to find the American guy out here, and a little younger than me, but I haven't found one yet. But it's going to be an awesome event.
In terms of the riders up at the front, Marquez, Acosta, Vinales, who's your pick?
Yeah, I don't think this year you can pick. You know what I mean? Normally you can pick, okay, this guy's going to be good, this guy's going to be good, but this year, it's whatever tire fits the guy, it's gone. Yeah, I think should be good.
Great to see you. Enjoy it.
I hope so. I'd like to see Mark do it, but it's a big.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jack. Thanks very much to Kenny Roberts as well. What an absolute legend, of course. Multiple World Championship winning rider, won a whole bunch of world titles as well as a racer. And that was going on here. Christian Gabarini.
He's got a front fender in his hand.
He's got a front fender here for Pecco Bagnaia. This, of course, is Pecco Bagnaia's crew chief, also crew chief when Casey Stoney won his 2 MotoGP world titles in 2007 for Ducati, 4 years later in 2011 for Repsol Honda.
Well, his rider was certainly looking calm enough on the grid. Here he is getting in the steps here. In fact, Jack Appleyard, who's down there, can tell us what's going on. Jack, down to you.
Yeah, there is a front fender on Pecco Bagnaia's bike that they're fitting now, but there is no front fender on Enea Bastianini's bike. In fact, they're running across now and swapping it across. Some late drama here for Bagnaia.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Jack. Yeah, Christian Gabarini was the crew chief that got tasked with the mission of going into Olympic 100-metre sprint mode. It looks like they've just managed to get it sorted in time. So Gabarini sprinting ahead of the sprint. Are the omens good then for Pecco Bagnaia, who absolutely cruised it here in the sprint 1 year ago?
Yeah, no problems for Enea Bastianini, we're told on the grid. He's got everything all A-OK and ready for the Tissot sprint. Last thing you want is any kind of stress, I guess, for the rider. Unless there's an actual problem that's going to affect the sprint, you don't even tell him about that. You just let him get himself in the zone and concentrate on the start. Miguel Oliveira then in 14th. It's been a weekend of near misses for Trackhouse so far in their first home Grand Prix. They narrowly missed out on the top 10 in practice yesterday, and they were 3rd and 4th in Q1, narrowly missing out on the pole position shootout. So they start together on the 5th row of the grid.
Tell you what, Christian Gabarini can have a double cheeseburger tonight, can't he? Now, after that particular excursion back to the factory Ducati garage, safety car then peels away at the front of the grid. Less than 3 minutes until lights out for what really should be a belting Tissot sprint. Looking forward to this one, as I'm sure you are at home. You have got the best seat in the house for this 10-lap sprint that is coming your way. Can he be back-to-back sprint wins here in Texas for the double world champion? Will Marc Marquez find his way to the first gold medal of his MotoGP career? And it's all eyes on the closed eyes of Pedro Acosta. He couldn't, could he, in just his 3rd MotoGP appearance, win the Tissot sprint? Look at this front row of the grid. Marc Marquez in 3rd place, his first Ducati front row. Pedro Acosta's first front row MotoGP, but they're all chasing the top, going to top qualifying. He starts pole, Maverick Vinales.